What do you know? We are on live another Tuesday night. Thanks, guys. Appreciate everybody for joining tonight. I always say TGIT, but when you really think about that, not really anybody cares about Tuesday nights. And really, Tuesday night is just, I guess, one more day closer to the weekend. So I guess maybe it's better than Monday, other than, I don't know. I mean, I like Mondays because of football, I guess. I like Sunday, Saturday, all these other things, and Tuesday, and I guess it is what it is. But anyway, thanks, guys. Appreciate everybody for joining tonight. Tonight's going to be kind of a fun one. We're coming off Thanksgiving. Hopefully everybody had a great Thanksgiving, had a chance to spend some time with friends, family, all of that kind of stuff. So again, I think it's just kind of one of these more fitting times to just kind of keep it light, especially with the way things are within this world sometimes that you got to just do stuff to kind of keep things light a little bit. And I think tonight's guest, you'll see, very serious dude. So we're going to keep it as serious as we can all night long. We were just kind of chatting before we went live. And if you don't know who tonight's guest is, you just have to go to Instagram, check him out. There is some funny ass shit. I'm telling you, some really good, entertaining stuff. And Lord knows we need a lot of that stuff these days. So anyway, let me say hi to a few people. We'll get into some things tonight, have a little bit of fun. We do have some couple little topics that we'll hit on, but we're going to keep it kind of light and just fun and drink some whiskey. And if you guys have any questions for any of us, just let us know. So Top Dog was in. Peter, good to see you. What's up, Mustang? Good to see you, buddy. Kitty, how are you doing? Tater, Dom, good. Timmy, how you doing? What else we got? It must be maybe a slow night or something. There's not as many people in here as normal, but maybe we'll get going, see how things go, and we'll have a lot of fun. How's it going, Anthony? Good to see you as well. So let me bring on tonight's guest. We will get this party started. Christopher, how you doing, brother?
Scott, I'm good. How are you? I appreciate you having me on tonight.
Absolutely. I was trying to think the other day about kind of doing something coming off of Thanksgiving, just kind of keeping it kind of light. And your video, I would say, that you did on Instagram was a trigger for me the other day. And I'm like, man, I got to reach back out, because I know you were like, I think you were being like Michael Jordan. The last time I had asked you were doing like a men's league or something and out there hooping. So
yeah, we do Tuesday nights and Thursday nights. And we were talking earlier before we got started about getting old. And I got to tell you, 2 nights, I used to only do one night. 2 nights of basketball a week I can't do it. So we're back down to one night.
You got those like heated pads on your back, your knees are all taped up, and yeah, it doesn't it doesn't get any better the older you get. So but hey, thanks for I know it was kind of short notice. I'm glad you're able to kind of come on, but I wanted to just let me ask you this. How was your Thanksgiving? How was all of that before we dive into everything? What'd you do? What'd you drink?
My Thanksgiving was good. So my father and myself and my brother, and then I have a buddy every other year joins us. We wake up early. We go to my uncle's house, and they've done a Thanksgiving football game for like 42 years or something like that. They're obviously getting old themselves, but we try and bring the younger generation, the kids in, to try and kind of take it over type of thing, because they can only play a couple of downs. So we wake up 6:30 in the morning. We're at my parents' house. My brother owns a 65 Jeep Willie that he bought off my grandfather. So we hop in the back of that. Obviously, no doors, no windows, anything like that. We cruise down to my uncle's house about 7:00, and we start drinking. He's a big Jack Daniels fan, so he has all the different, the Frank Sinatras and the barrel proofs and the barrel proof ryes. 7:00 in the morning. It's a little early for a barrel proof rye, but you dabble. You have a sip or two. Go out, play football, a couple of beers, and then back to my parents' house is usually where any of the wild turkey that I bring that day we break out. I start with the wild turkey 101 rye, and then moved into the Russell's reserves and all that kind of stuff.
Man, I'm guessing by the time either the first like NFL game comes on, you're either about ready to nap or maybe passed out, or maybe both.
Right around nap time for that. So you try and catch the first half, you take a little nap, and then you wake up, eat turkey, and then you take another nap.
I was gonna say, you might be like a strong candidate for like, recording sports, especially on Turkey Day.
Right.
You've already hit it so hard, your body's sore. You've had a lot of liquid, encouragement and stuff in you. So by the time you get to about noon or 1:00 when the game start, you're kind of looking for a lazy boy to kind of maybe shut the eyelids for a little bit.
I've toned it down a little bit these days. I've in my younger years I've been sober, not feeling great, hungover, and all in the same day before 8 o'clock even hits. So
Yeah.
these days I try and take it a little bit easier though.
See, it sounds like an old veteran. These are veteran moves. The rookie is the one that goes real hard early. You have to
Yep.
learn your lesson, get all that stuff like out of your system, and then you start to get into like the old veterans. It's really just like sports. You're the young buck. You're eager to get in there. Then by the time you kind of get into your veteran states, you're like you start taking days off. Your veteran
Yep.
days. My knees hurt, my back hurts. So all those good things. So, all right, well, awesome. It sounds like you had a hell of a Thanksgiving day. It's a lot. That sounds like a lot of fun. I know people will try to play golf and do all those things, and there's lots of football traditions and all of that. And unfortunately, I've always had like sisters, and I didn't have anybody that really was willing to let me tackle them, I should say, because
Right.
I probably wouldn't have just kind of gone like too easy. So it might have been a couple extra shoves or something a little too hard. And then
Got to get a little extra shove in there,
then it could have just got out of control and screaming and crying, all these other things. It just like in my mind, it sounded like that could have potentially been a little bit of a mess. So maybe it was good that I didn't, but I'm glad you had a good Thanksgiving. So,
Yep.
So what are you sipping on right there? I see the bottle, but what do you got right now?
I broke it out, so now I'm on the VDN, the trifecta, the Mash and Journey pick from the Summer Jam. I did have an honor of meeting you down at Summer Jam when we went down to Sagamore. Before that, I was starting with some Wolcott. I've never had this before. This is a Barton 1792 release, apparently like a Total Wine and Spirits type of made for them type of release, I believe.
Okay.
It's decent. It tastes like some younger 1792, but I haven't had it, so I figured I'd open it up tonight.
Well, and like some of the other stuff, when you said before the honor of meeting me, so clearly I can tell you've hit the bottle a little bit too hard, like already. So there's already the tipsiness.
Started early.
Yeah, it's already starting to happen. But no, that VDN that we did, we really got lucky in getting that and being able to kind of have an opportunity to do something that Sagamore had never, like, I guess I'll say really ever done. They had never released any of that. So we felt kind of honored to even have the opportunity to be able to release that, at the event and all that. So good. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I think it came out really, really good.
It's tough to get your hands on a lot of these other creators' picks. Obviously, everybody's coming out with a lot of picks all of the time. I do my best as I can to pick up bottles, but everybody's got a budget, and with trying to put out my own content and everything, this right here is up there questionably with one of my favorites. I think. I don't know. As far as, first of all, the rye, Sagamore ryes are already delicious. And then the VDN, I tried it at a flight. They had the flights there that day as well, that I believe the one VDN was in the one flight. And it just didn't compare to it. It was just so much better than everything else.
Yeah.
It's really good.
That was the fun part about being able to try a few of the different ones that they sent. And that one kind of, there was one other than we were kind of tossing around a little bit, but that at the end of the day kind of stood out quite a bit. So let's do this. Let's back up a little bit. So we're both here, talking as professional whiskey tube gentlemen, right? This where we're keeping this stuff very serious at this point. So
right.
So clearly a couple gentlemen, right? Getting into talking whiskey, doing all that stuff. Let's back up before we got to where we were here. What were you doing, and what was it that kind of got you into even approaching or enjoying whiskey at all?
So I started right before COVID is when I really got like big into the whiskey thing and started the YouTube. But before that, the reason I even started drinking the stuff was actually my girlfriend at the time, my now wife, her stepfather. I went over his place for dinner. You meet the parents, you finally go over, and I was drinking, Jack Daniel's Old Number 7 ginger ale, out of college, just cheap, whatever I could find at the bar. But I liked whiskey. So I was drinking Jack Daniel's, and I knew about bourbon, but I didn't really know about bourbon at the time. And I went over to his house, and he had a huge shelf, probably more bourbon than I have on my back shelf right here. Not my collection, but more bourbon than on my back shelf. And had a whole collection of it. And he says, "Oh, you like whiskey?" And I say, "Oh yeah, of course." I got to impress the guy. I love whiskey. I could tell you all about it. Me and my Jack Daniels and my ginger ales and all that. So he pulled out a bottle of this and a bottle of that, and we're, tossing them back, and I'm learning all about it from him. And I was like, I got to learn more information the next time I go over this house to impress him. So I came home, I do a little research on a couple bottles that I remember, and I go back the next week or 2 weeks later to have dinner again. And there I am spitting off information. And now I'm buying bottles just to show him that I have these bottles. And that's honestly how I got into it, just to impress this guy so that my girlfriend at the time could be like, oh, he's best friends with my stepdad. Like, he's a great guy, and
Yeah.
ended up working out. So I got both the wife and the whiskey. So
Wow,
win-win in my book.
that's absolutely that's a win-win. It's always funny to hear the stories as to what it was that was whatever it was that got you into it. And there's if there's never a story that doesn't have a woman involved somehow, whatever. But it is. I mean, it's mine wasn't exactly that, but mine was more of what my dad was doing. And again, this was not quite after college, probably a little bit after college for the most part, but he was kind of just sitting, we were at a bar or something along those lines, and he was drinking it neat. And at the time I was thinking, who in God's earth would drink this stuff like neat? Like, you drank old number 7 and ginger ale, 7-Up, whatever, beer in college. And whiskey was like, it honestly felt at that point like whiskey was for like old dudes, like whiskey felt like an old person's kind of drink. But anyway, he was sitting there and he was drinking this stuff, and I'm like, boy, what in the hell are you, drinking? So I asked him, like, hey, can I have a little bit of it? Which now thinking back is weird, because I don't want anyone really like drinking out of my glass,
Right.
But he's probably like, all right, it's my son here, give this a try, whatever. I tried it. I forget exactly what it was, but I remembered not like hating it, which was good. And it kind of got me thinking, like, man, this is kind of cool, is that you can drink this without it having to be in Coke or whatever it may be. And that was really the moment for me that got me thinking like more about like what that was, because he's like, you got to realize, he's like, this stuff is like what he was drinking was meant to be sipped on. And I was just thinking in my mind, there's no way, like, that can't not have Coke in it,
Right.
But
that's not the mentality I have.
Exactly. And it was like, it got me thinking a little bit more. I think I tried some other stuff like on my own. And again, it was that initial, feeling of like, maybe you just took like a pull off of like a gas pump or something. But I got past that. And then now, well, here we are, a couple of professionals that tell everybody, again, our opinions of what's right and wrong. And the best part of it at the end of the day is not necessarily the whiskey. It's all of this, being able to talk to people, meet other people, do all these other things that was never a thought in my mind that anything would ever even get to this point, so, but, here we are. And, that's really been the fun part of this. Like, I know the journey part of it is, part of the tagline and all that, but it's exactly that. I mean, it's part of what you experience, what I experience, and everybody kind of, coming together, to enjoy and talk about something that we all, really, really enjoy. So anyway.
And that's a question for you that I have now. It's obviously my bourbon journey, but you've moved out of just bourbon, right? You're drinking all kinds of whiskeys.
I have, and really the more I thought about that, I wish I would have changed it to literally my whiskey journey, because obviously that's more broad, right?
Yep.
But at the time when I was doing all of this, like when I started the channel, which was really kind of the middle part of 2016, I had started it. Didn't know anything about YouTube, none of that kind of stuff. It was just going to be a video diary. Like, I didn't realize that when I like recorded something and then uploaded it, I didn't realize people were watching what I was doing.
Other people were looking at this.
Other people, like, I mean, at the time I was so naive to the whole thing that I was just using it as almost like a storage. Like, somehow YouTube was just this little thing, and I was just going to upload a video and then I could watch it whenever I wanted. Well, I quickly found out that that wasn't the case because a couple people started leaving like comments, and I'm like, who in God's earth is like watching this video? You
How
know,
did they find this?
how did they find this? And I think my very first, if I remember back, I swear, I think my very first video was Blanton's. I'm pretty sure it was because just like you and a lot of people, when you get into it and you start to dive into it pretty heavy, you want everything, right? You just
Everything.
you can't not buy it. Like you, even though it's like Russell's 10, you're like, this has got to be allocated. This thing's great. Like
Got it.
you're
Yep.
never, where am I gonna find this bourbon ever again? You know,
Mhm.
well, now, whatever, 7, 8 years later, you realize the shit's everywhere. But at the time, you're doing all of this research and you're checking all these things out, and you wanted everything. You were diving so deep into this and kind of going down that rabbit hole that I wanted everything. And then I wanted to do more videos, and then it was still like a lot of deer in headlights. I'm like looking at this
Right.
phone, like I didn't know what I was doing. I'm like at a dining room table, like some asshole, like I didn't know shit about anything. And I'm sitting there trying to tell somebody else, not really someone else, what I'm tasting, but other people are watching this
Right.
thinking I'm talking to them, which I really never was talking to anybody. I was just staring at my phone like an idiot,
Yep.
But anyway, so here we are, and we're now like clearly whiskey professionals, and we
Obvious.
know everything, right?
If you go back and watch a couple of my first video, I don't recommend it to anybody here, by the way. The first couple of videos before I actually figured out how to have an online presence and kind of be myself they were bad. There were, because I went into it knowing that other people were watching, which I think I would have rather gone into it the way that you go on, because at least you're yourself, right? You're not thinking, you're not doing
No,
this for anybody else. Where
no,
I went into it thinking I'm going to have 1 million subscribers tomorrow. If I
yeah,
don't put out good content, they're not going to come back. So I went
yeah,
into it. I'm yelling at people. I've got things popping up on the screen that have no business being on the screen. Just
yeah.
ridiculous videos.
It's just one of those things where it's honestly, I think everyone's journey of how that began to like where you are now. I think everyone needs to have that, because really it's one of those situations where you don't know what you don't know,
Oh yeah.
and we think we have a good idea because especially for probably you and other people that are getting into it now, there's much more of a benchmark. They can go and watch all of us, and they see like all the stuff behind us and whiskey. I had none of that. I was like at a dining room table with like my wife's decorations
Just
and
a
shit behind me.
bottle on the
It
table.
it was literally like a Blanton's bottle, and it was just like
Your overhead LED lights flickering up
I
top.
was the most unlegit whiskey person like ever. Like there is no
That's
way I would
funny.
ever believe this guy. My camera thing would like I would move around, it would adjust back, I'd be
Like just
blurry.
focus and everything.
It was a
Dude, I've been there. It is bad. It is
it was a
bad.
complete
But like you said,
disaster.
without learning that, I mean, look at your set looks great now. You've got everything figured out. You're doing live streams all the time.
Yeah.
Without doing that, you would have never been able to figure it out.
No, and that was exactly it, because really at the time there were only I'll say a handful, but I don't even remember there being that many people that were even doing any whiskey content outside of like more Scotch stuff. I know there was like the Scotch test dummies. I know they were doing some stuff for a little while longer. There was this lady, I think she was called the Whiskey Bitch. She
Beautiful.
was
Love
doing
that.
some stuff. Yeah, she was doing some stuff. She seemed to be very knowledgeable. Ralphie, that guy who does all the Scotch stuff. But other than that, I don't know who else was even doing it. And again, I only knew who they were because I figured out that people were watching my stupid videos, and I went to like look something up and ran into all these like other whiskey people. So
Right.
everything I did was just out of pure like from just being a complete idiot. Like it was, I guess now, like looking back, I wouldn't trade it because it's kind of funny to see
Oh
where
yeah.
that has and all that. But um, I don't know. The people at least doing stuff now have much more benchmark for being able to create much better, content and all of that. So
Well, you were when I got started, you were one of the first people that I personally reached out to that actually responded. I mean, you were one of the first people I messaged in the first place, but
yeah,
when you first start out and you same thing you said, you go on and you see all these other people making videos, and I saw your videos and they're doing so well, and I'm like, what is he doing? How can I do I want to emulate what he does, because
yeah,
I mean, it obviously wasn't your 2016 stuff that I was watching. It was your
yeah,
2020, 2021 stuff, but
yeah,
I was just like, this guy, he knows what he's doing. He's very professional about it. So I reached out to you, and you were very generous with the knowledge that you've gained over those years
yeah.
of sitting at the kitchen table. So I
Yeah,
appreciate you for that. Absolutely.
it's kind of gone a long way, and honestly, that was always my approach. And again, that's probably just my personality. I always felt, and still do, that if people reach out to me for whatever it may be, I'm happy to talk to you. Like, I'm happy to do all these things, whatever I can do to help people. I'm perfectly fine and happy to do so. And I know, whether it's in our like niche or other things, I know there are, people that, just will blow people off. And that's never been kind of my personality from that standpoint, is that I have always felt that if you take the time to either, generally speaking, leave a comment, good or bad, I'll reply to it, or, whatever it may be. Or if you reach out by email or something, you try to do what you can, because someone's always been or will be in that position of not necessarily needing something, but just looking for some guidance or whatever it
Guidance,
may be.
direction.
And
Right.
if I can do or be any little part of that, I'm happy to do so. I
And
don't think
usually it's something so small where it's just like, hey, I noticed you're doing this on your videos. Like, how were you able to do this? Or like, it's a quick reply, but the reply is the important part. Like you said, for
yeah,
somebody who was just starting out, like I was, and I'm posting videos where, like I said, I was thinking I was going to get views, and I'm getting like 8, 9 views. And then I
yeah.
see you post a video that's getting like 20,000. And I'm like, what's he doing? Like, I know he knows something I don't know. So like,
Yeah. It is one of those things, I would say, like, now, and I still try to figure out, like all these views and all of these other things. I have stopped worrying about that as much, and just kind of have fun. And there's other things that I focus on more than just that now. But it used to kill me. Like, you'd post a video, you're like, this thing's gonna kill it. It's gonna go good, and then like 24 hours later, you got like 100 views. I'm like, what is going on? Like, what happened? And there's other
yeah.
things that you see that are the opposite of that you're like, there's no way that guy's going to have this or that. And then it's a million views. It's like, wow, I have no idea what in the world I'm doing. And again, I think oftentimes, your personality, how it comes across, right? I think that's a big part of it. And admittedly, my videos are a little bit more, I guess, I don't want to say like dry, but I've always kind of structured them as, it's like I'm really kind of focused on what I'm doing. It's kind of similar, like when I do barrel picks with that kind of stuff, is you get locked in. You're like thinking so much about what you're trying to
Right.
do that you lose kind of the fun part of it. And it's never gotten easy to sit in front of a camera and talk to it. Like, that's one thing I've always, and still do, kind of struggle a little bit, is that it's a weird ass feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really weird. So I've always struggled with the like fun side of like my personality. When the camera's not off, it's completely different. Now what I do, like the seriousness, it's not a different side of me. It's just the focus part of it, but
Right.
I'm always a little envious of the people that can record videos and have like a good time. I'm like, fuck, I wish I could just do that, but it's
And one thing that I'll say is, I think, from what my perspective on things is, I see a lot of successful channels that have partners, duos,
right.
um, where there's two people involved in it. Not saying that it makes it easier, but I think it allows them to bring out more of their personality, because they have that back and forth conversation where
Right.
you and I are literally, like you said, I'm talking to a camera. So I have to
Yeah.
be myself by myself, which is, it becomes very difficult to do. Where if I had somebody here like tonight, you and me just sitting here chit chat and shooting the shit becomes a
Yep.
lot more comfortable with who we are than
Yeah.
rather of, hey, this is a bourbon that I'm drinking. Come along with me on my tasting notes, you know?
Yeah. It is, and that's a very good point. Like I've even said to other people and some of the guys that have partners, it is nice to have that wingman because it's a bit comforting.
Yep.
You have somebody else to kind of work off of. There's the two personalities that get to kind of battle and do all that stuff. Like Dan and Sean, they work real good. I mean, they're great. I mean,
They're
they're
perfect
like
together.
Laurel and
Right.
Hardy, they can do those kinds of things. But like if I was talking to someone, they're gonna be like, that dude's crazy. He's literally talking to nobody. That's
There's
just a
nobody
psychopath.
there. Right.
That's what like a
Yep.
psychopath looks like. So, but I get exactly what you're saying is that I think having that kind of wingman or wing person is just another outlet, so to speak.
Yep.
So, but um, speaking of like funny shit, let's talk a little bit about like because your Instagram is ridiculous, man. Like shit is so funny. Like I'm glad that you had like a good time and stuff with it. But going when you kind of go back, like not even that long ago, about buying some whiskey to impress your now father-in-law to where you are now, like what has that been? Like what is it that makes you kind of want to do the keep it light and do kind of some of the funny things that you do?
So I think the biggest thing for me is I did start out with your regular reviews, your everyday, your list, your top 5 this, top 5 that. I still bourbon of the week, so I still do my weekly reviews. I buy new bottles, I get new things, and I do my weekly reviews. I think the biggest thing that I found is there's so many people, like you said, the market became almost saturated with people like yourself, unfortunately, who are much more knowledgeable than me. So I'm not going to compete in a market where there's YouTubers out there like you, where there's YouTubers out there like Dan and Sean and Jason Mash and Drum who have a control and have a knowledge of the, not that I couldn't get it or couldn't figure it out, but the point is if somebody else out there does it better than me, why am I going to try and compete with that? So I
Yeah.
kind of started looking around and I like to be funny. I've always been the funny, I talk about people are like, you should be a stand-up comedian. And I never would ever be that. I would need the crowd work. I would need
Yeah.
the second person to bounce things off of. So I've been funny in that sense. And I started to recognize there's a lot of relatable stuff in the whiskey world. And if you put that in one of those short little funny TikTok algorithm videos, people like it because they can relate to it. They're like, I've been there, I've been in that situation, or that's true. I think that's hilarious. And they interact with it. And I think not that the market didn't have that, but I think there was like kind of this missing element of whiskey humor in that sense. So
Yeah.
I kind of jumped in to fill that gap. It's funny though. I agree with you that I even laugh at my own sometimes where I'm like, that's some funny shit right there.
Dude, it is. Some of it is good, and there's a lot of people that do things, but I'll tell you, it seems like every time you're like doing one, it's like, oh man, it's like, what is he up to now? Like, what is this going to be? And like, like even the one you did the other day. And I'll say this, I won't spoil it for anyone. I would say go to Instagram and go to Bourbon of the Week and look at the most, unless you've done one since that.
I think I've done one more since the one.
Okay, well, look at look at all of them, but look at the last like 2. I'll tell you what, man. Chris is one funny ass dude. Like some of these things, like I wish. First of all, I wouldn't even know how to make any of that stuff. Like I don't even know how to like work hardly Instagram from that standpoint. But the things you come up with are like ridiculous, and it is really nice because I think you've got a kind of a cool part of the market there where there's someone who's relatable within the whiskey world that has done something different, kind of keeps it like light,
Right.
because I know from like the serious side of things, like Matt, ADHD Whiskey, was kind of one of the first ones to break the mold of like just getting outside of the serious reviews that a lot of us do. And he's always done a great job with that. He's got kind of, his thing and his approach to how he does his videos. But, again, that's these personalities. But man, when you do those videos, it'll put a smile on an awful lot of people's faces. That's for darn
It's
sure.
fun when I can actually get in them as well. The one you're speaking of, I'm actually in that video. A lot of them are your typical 7-second, some green screen overlay where it's like a movie character that you'll know. But that one, that one was funny. We talked about it beforehand, and I was debating whether or not to post it because, like you said, we're in a world now where not everybody can take the joke that's put in front of you. But I
Yeah.
decided to post it anyway, and I think people will like it.
Yeah, it was a really fun one. And I think you've got a good personality for being able to do some of those things as well. So it's, you know,
Yeah.
and like I don't know, like that's not. I've always wondered, like could you do that with like YouTube? Is there a platform outside of the shorts? Like I don't know if there's
Right.
another platform, and again, I don't know how well shorts is for that versus like the Instagram and TikTok stuff. Like shorts doesn't really seem to be a thing that's taken off like that great, I guess.
Not
But
not as so obviously TikTok was the start. Instagram is coming back and doing really well with Reels. Shorts, I post them on Shorts just because you got to post them on Shorts.
yeah,
But it's definitely I think the big thing with YouTube is obviously long form content and the big problem is there's no conversion from those shorts to long form
yeah,
because I'm sure you know and maybe people in the chat don't know the way we make any type of revenue off YouTube is via long form content. So
right,
if you don't have the people watching your long form content, the shorts, they're funny, they're there, people interact with them. But even if they subscribe because of your shorts, they're not then going and watching my
yeah,
10-minute video on your VDN pick. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
I
yeah,
like to post them there, but I haven't figured out a way. Now, Matt, like you said, has very funny, humorous Matt ADHD personality content when it comes to his reviews, but I haven't figured a way to take that humor and that relatability to like a long form video.
yeah. That is tough to be like in that form for 8, 10, 12 minutes and
Right.
continuously do it because I mean he does a lot of that stuff and he implements the whiskey review into a little bit of the funny approach, and that's a
Yep.
very unique and different way to do it. It's I mean, I give him a lot of credit for being able to kind of do some of those things. This dude, this dude right here has got some hilarious fucking videos.
Talk
This
about
guy,
another guy that has more knowledge than I'll ever have, you know?
this guy. Don't tell him that though. Don't tell him that. His head will get bigger. So, what was I going to say? Oh yeah, we did have a couple of like let's get back to our serious approach of this
Oh,
though.
right, right, right.
We did figure that you guys would not want to just like listen to us like bullshit all night long. So Chris was nice enough to kind of come up with a couple top topics because I just completely lost a train of thought and all of that. But oh, speaking of funny,
Pop 'em,
dude
go
is
watch 'em.
hilarious. Bro,
Yes.
I loved watching Troy and still do with his videos where he's like very like um Jimmy or all the wrestling type of like format and
Uh-huh.
stuff. Like, it's I love his personality is great. All of those other things I enjoyed watching I enjoy watching his videos and doing all that stuff too. His approach is good. And he knows a thing or two about whiskey as well, which makes
Just a
it
couple things, just a couple
yeah, a
things.
couple things. So um but anyway, so we were kind of talking, and I'm sure you've seen this as well as I have and everyone else. But I think your idea of the new releases that are starting to come out, these things over the course of the last, I'll say, couple of months, maybe we'll even say 6 months or so ago, where you're now starting to see these actual distilleries or brands releasing these bottles that are what we once knew as like secondary prices have now become like mainstream. And it was an interesting question that you asked, and I'm glad that you kind of brought this up because I'd love to hear your perspective on this, and I've got my opinion. But where are you at with where some of these prices on these whiskeys are at these days?
So I brought this question up specifically to you because I was curious with how long you've been, obviously, both in whiskey too, but obviously following the bourbon market. I think you're going to have a great insight on this. But when I got started, there were always releases. There were your Booker's releases, your Elijah Craig barrel proof releases, your Larceny releases. There were, standard releases. There was your BTAC every year, everything like that. But now it's gotten to the point, at least from my perspective, where it seems like every distillery is trying to be BTAC. Wild
Yeah.
Turkey is the first thing that comes to mind for me, with the Masters Keeps jumping to 275. I think they're up to on that. Their last release, which was one of my favorite whiskeys, I think it was their last release, the Unforgotten. One of my favorite whiskeys was 200. So they jumped $75 in the one from one to the next. Then you have Wild Turkey's Generations coming out, where 400. I had an opportunity to buy that online at $450. It ended up being like 470 after tax and shipping and all this. And
Yeah.
I tell you, I'm 2 seconds away from clicking buy it, and then I'm thinking that's a car payment. That's
Yeah.
that's a legitimate car payment for a very nice car these days. Like, not $500 is a car payment, a car note on a very nice car. So I let it
Yeah.
go. I just couldn't do it as much as I wanted to try it. And the other reason I bring this up is because obviously I have my community. We've started doing bottle splits
Yeah.
where it seems
Yeah.
like it's so I never wanted to get involved with that, but at the same time, I don't have the budget to go out and spend $450 on a bottle of whiskey. Now I can spend $40 on a 4-ounce sample of it, but if that's what it's going to come to, where I have to be part of a community of 48 people, 50
Yeah.
people to buy one bottle of whiskey, it
Yeah.
just seems like. And the biggest problem to me is it good whiskey? So I can't tell you it is. I can't tell you it isn't, but I can
Yeah.
probably tell you that it's not worth $450. I haven't tried it, Generation specifically,
Yeah.
but that's where I'm at on it. I don't want to have a debate or like a conversation with my wife over
Yeah.
if we can afford to take out a second mortgage on the house to buy
Right.
a new bottle of whiskey.
Yeah. I would agree with you 100%. And even going back, like, to when I first kind of started out with things, really at the time when you were in that honestly $55 range, you
Yep.
know, like that was already getting into the more, premium, like maybe 60, 65. Booker's was probably one of the most expensive
That's like
that was on the
70.
that
Yeah.
was one of the most expensive on the shelves at the time. Blanton's you could actually find, going back early. I'd go to Total Wine and it would be there, and it was, I don't know, 45 or $50. But again, at that time, it was something that felt special. But there didn't really seem, excuse me, there didn't seem to be a lot of like what we consider like ultra premium. Like now, there weren't all of these smaller brands with more expensive whiskeys. It was much more, mainstream. But again, like what you're saying about like Wild Turkey and whether it's Jim Beam or whatever it may be, Rabbit Hole is a great example of that. Like, I mean, these prices have just gotten like out of control because in my opinion, at the end of the day, bourbon can only be so good,
Yep.
unless you've got more money than time and you can buy anything you want and money is no object, fine. But that's not the vast majority of people. And when you're going to try to sell me on, again, I don't want to bash Wild Turkey, but $450 for that, you're not going to make the argument to me, generally speaking, that bottle is going to be much or any better than like a really good like Russell single barrel or something.
Russell single barrel is what I say all day.
What?
Even the Rick House, the Rick House has a story to me that is interesting. I understand it. I've talked to many people about this Rick House versus that Rick House, but I've had so many Russell's Reserve single barrel store picks that blow the water, like delicious.
Yep.
And you're gonna tell me that I have to drop $400 on a single Rick House, even though I have a single barrel from that Rick House for 65, $70?
Yeah.
How is a blend of that going to now be 5 times the value? And again,
I
this
just
isn't just Wild Turkey, like you said. This is every distillery seems to just be slapping a hey, we're only making 2,900 of these, and they sell out immediately because
Yeah.
of scarcity. That's
Yeah.
why they're doing it.
And I think part of it, like Eric says here, like, maybe they have watched secondary too much. And it feels like the distilleries at this point are late to the game, because it seems like the secondary market is starting to slow or kind of fizzle out a little bit.
A little
Now
bit.
they're trailed and they've watched this for so long that now they feel like they can just MSRP this stuff at
If
secondary
anybody's gonna get
prices.
the money.
Yeah,
Right.
they're gonna get it. And I think that's a bit of the naive marketing people with these huge brands, because there's that disconnect. It's like in a lot of corporations where you've got all of the higher ups thinking they know what's best for all of the field people, when there's
Yep.
such a disconnect. They don't know anything that is going on. So it feels a little bit like that. So the I don't know. I mean, it's gotten to the point where I don't feel like the bubble is going to burst quite yet. And I think that
Mm-mm.
maybe they'll start to be less of that. But then there's some brand who comes along and throws another crazy number on a bourbon, and I always think to myself, like, who are the people honestly buying that? Like, who's spending that kind of money
Right.
on it? And it can't just be everyone who's got a lot of money that's buying it. I can't imagine that's the case. But I don't know if there's FOMO that kicks in and people feel like it's
I've definitely been in the FOMO book because,
yeah,
but not at that price though, because there's a point where FOMO becomes, I don't care about FOMO anymore, and $450 is definitely that point where. And my biggest concern is, like you said, how much better can it be? They're not even advertising it as like this is a 22-year-old whiskey or anything. Like at least Pappy, when they put their
yep,
secondary prices out, like it's a limited supply of 20-plus-year-old whiskey where I mean, I don't know the exact age statement on generations or whatever it is, but yeah, I mean, Jason, the verbiage, all the
yeah,
edgy words they use to bring
yeah,
out these bottles, it just irks me, and it bothers me that, like you said, it doesn't seem like it's going away. And I
yeah,
don't mind distilleries trying to combat the secondary market, because I also don't love the secondary market myself. There's obviously a place for it, but
yeah,
I think that it's gotten a little bit out of hand, becoming, hey, we can just take these back. We had these barrels in the back. We didn't know what we were going to do with them. Let's put it in our next special release. Call it this. Tell them there's only 3,000 bottles, and
yeah.
like you said, put limited edition on it. And now it's $400.
Well, and even to that point, the interesting part is that if you're a company that has distilled it and you've got that older stuff and it's been sitting around there for quite some time, yeah, you've got the investment of the taxes throughout all the years, but the monetary part of the translation from the time that whiskey was made until now has such a smaller number on it than what they're putting on it. So like their cost at the time of them making it, let's just say 10 years ago to now is fractions of what they're trying to charge now. Like where that
Right.
bottle 10 years ago might have been $50, now it's $500, and it is. You can sense there's a money grab, there's all of this stuff, but it didn't seem to come until a lot of these buyouts started happening as they became acquired by these other big companies.
That's another big issue. It's
They
it's
they
the
now need
Green
to
River
recoup.
getting bought up. It's
Yep.
Penelope getting bought up. It's all these companies that you used to love and you could get for $30, $35 now being bought up by companies just to have their older aged whiskey because they're running out of it themselves. And again, I can't fault the big companies for that, but you can't crush the market with
No.
$500 bottles of whiskey.
And that's kind of the issue, is that to me is kind of where I think the people who run these large corporations have so many, yes men and women that just tell them what they want to hear versus the real numbers. Because if you took a bunch of like whiskey enthusiasts and said something to Campari or whatever and say, you can't charge $1,000 or $750 for a 12-year-old Source Barton that you stuck in an Amburana cask.
Right. The
Like
finishes are another conversation. Yep.
I don't give a shit what you did to that. That whiskey is not worth that price. And like that was the same thing Rabbit Hole did like not long ago, where I think they had sourced some whiskey finished in Amburana and then charged like, I don't know, $1,000, $1,200 for a bottle of that. Like,
and I think the bigger thing, well, not the bigger thing, but another thing is you, Jason, who's in here, Beyond the Row, myself, are becoming knowledgeable enough to recognize Voyage, the Wild Turkey's Master Keep Voyage, they use Jamaican rum casks. And as I'm diving deeper into this, they use a company called Appleton Estate from Jamaica Rum. Well, Campari owns Appleton Estate, Jamaica Rum. Like Campari owns the same company. So we're sitting here thinking, oh, they teamed up with this Jamaican rum. They didn't team up with them. They probably have barrels that were shipped up here to take the rum out and barrel, and now they're using it for Wild Turkey Voyage. Like they're double dipping into these barrels and then throwing a Wild Turkey Masters Keep out there for $275. It just seems, like you said before, it's a money grab.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and it's one of the things that I hate to see it, because the community as a whole is great. And when you start to see these targets of these brands taking advantage of the way things are, it's a little bit like irritating. And again, I think we're also a small percentage of the people who, let's just say, have some whiskey knowledge. I think the vast majority of people, probably like we used to be, where they see something and if it's expensive, it's got to be good.
Got to be good.
And I think there's so many people, like you and I were talking before we even kind of got into this, was there's so many people on a daily basis that continue to come into this community, this niche, and they want all of this, and everything seems to be now allocated. Everything's a limited edition, whether it's, I mean, all these target words, there's targets for everything. And I think it just captures so many people that it just got to the point where, like, when will that part of it be enough? And I don't know if it's coming anytime soon.
I got to agree. And the other thing is watching other companies, and just one of the names that I can think off the top of my head, Barrel Bourbon puts out batch 33, batch 34, batch 35, all great whiskey, and they stay at that $90. We talked about Booker's before, which was always kind of allocated. You could find it, but you couldn't. And they made the jump from like 70. I think it's like 100 now. Not outrageous given the market over the past 5-6 years. When they first made the jump from like 70 to 90, everybody was mad, but now it's like 90 to 99. And when I see companies like Jim Beam that can do that on their quote unquote special releases, limited releases, 4 times a year, 3 times a year, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923, everybody just whiskey of the year contender, sitting at $70, then you can't tell me that whatever I'm getting for $400 is going to be something that I've never tried before, or something that I've never had before, or better than anything else out on the market. So it just bothers me. Again, that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because I know you've been there for the days of, it wasn't always special limited releases. It was, this is what we're releasing at these times. You knew about BTAC, you knew about Elijah Craig, you knew about Larceny, and now it's every other day you turn around and look at this bottle, look at that bottle. You got to get this, you got to get that.
And that's a good point, because I was just talking to somebody about this the other day. I mean, we, with like, let's say like the Knob Creek single barrels, we got so spoiled with those when they were 13, 14, 15 years old for between 40 and 50 bucks. Now, when you see these things and they're 8, 9, 10 years old and maybe 50 bucks, people are like, I'm not going to pay that kind of price for it. You know, and it's like, that is still a little bit frustrating, because you're still talking about a 8, 9, 10-year-old bourbon for 50, 55 bucks, even 60 bucks, call it what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, that's kind of the stuff that people need to really be paying more attention to. 100%. Not the shit that's $350 or $450. I don't want to say better or worse, but that $50 or $60 Knob Creek single barrel isn't going to be less good than the $450 Wild Turkey. I'm sorry.
The value is a big thing that I've tried to focus on the channel. Is there's great whiskey at a certain price point. And we talked about it before we got it. Everybody has their top 5 under 25, top 5 under 50. And there's a lot more stuff I think coming out on the market. And I think that's what needs to happen is there needs to be more of that great
Yep.
whiskey knowledge for that $40 to $50 price range that it used to be. I think
Yep.
Green River did it, and then they got bought out by Bardstown Bourbon Company, and Bardstown Bourbon Company still puts out great whiskey at a great price. So I'm not
Yeah.
knocking them for that. I'm just saying as things get bought up, it becomes more and more difficult to find something in that price range.
I would agree. And I think there are probably those handful of ones that have still kind of done a good job with kind of keeping prices good. Like I still give honestly Four Roses a lot of credit from this standpoint.
Love for it. Yep.
Even their everyday things. Let's just say their Four Roses small batch select, their Four Roses single barrels, all still affordable. I would consider those still today like a pretty decent value for what it is that you're getting. But even their LEs or their barrel proofs at like whatever, now they're $110, $115. So what? Like I mean,
100, yep, 100%.
they still haven't gone to the point where they're going to say, well, now this is so special that it's now going to be $400. They could, but they've not gone there yet. Even their LEs that they sell every year, they keep those relatively affordable in today's day and age. So there's a few of them that are kind of holding on out there that haven't kind of followed suit with some of them. So it's just, I don't know, it's still a little bit disappointing. But
yep,
we'll kind of switch gears a little bit here. I know we were going to talk about a little bit of a favorite barrel pick experience. I know you had mentioned not necessarily the bottle, but the overall experience. Do you have one that you can kind of share?
So this goes back to, again, a question I'm asking you because you have a lot of experience in barrel picks. I'm on my 4th barrel pick now, and unfortunately for me, the way my job's set up, I'm very, very busy between the months of March and October. And that's normally like the busy time for quote unquote barrel picks. So, the winter months is when things slow down. Spending slows down, obviously, with the holidays and everything like that. So I haven't been out to an actual distillery for a barrel pick yet. I've had everything shipped to me and then done at my house. I'm going to go off the nostalgia of pick number 1. I did it with another fellow TikToker. His name was Whiskey Noobs Podcast. He runs a podcast. Great guy. We did a Blue Note barrel pick. It was a fantastic pick. I loved the idea. We got 3 samples for that. 2 of them were very good. The third one kind of stood out to me. And we talked about that with the VDN finish that you did with Jason, as you get a lot of good whiskey for barrel picks, but sometimes something if it's a little different and it's still delicious, you kind of want to go with that versus like, hey, this is Sagamore and this tastes like Sagamore and we love Sagamore, so let's pick Sagamore. Where this was something where it's more like we love Sagamore, but we want to do something that's a little bit different off the books of Sagamore because you don't want to just blend in with other Sagamore. And I think that's what our Blue Note pick did. We called it Boozy Fruit. It had like a juicy fruit bubblegum note to it. So I think just the nostalgia of getting my first actual barrel, there it is, Boozy Fruit, getting my first actual barrel pick done. I've done a few others with the Bourbon Judge, the Bourbon Van, and 21090 as well. I saw them in the chat here earlier tonight. So a lot of fun doing the picks, but I think, again, I'm just going to stick with my nostalgia of the first pick, getting my name on my first bottle.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that was really a fun thing too. Like, really, going back to the first one that I guess I'll say we did as the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club was a Rye 3. It was a cool, and we've done some fun ones since, but like even going back, we got to do this blend. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. Kind of created this blend that really ended up working out pretty well. Now, again, that was kind of a virtual one that we did, but it was a lot of fun. But as far as like in-person experiences, I would say they're all different. There's always some uniqueness, whether it's good or bad. But like a couple off the top of my head, like early on, we went to Wilderness Trail. Fortunately, we had a really good person that was helping us out with that one, and it was like more of like, well, we can sit at this table and just kind of select things here, or we can go into the rick house, drill barrels, pull stuff, right? We're like, well, hell yeah. So it was a
Let's
great,
go with that. Let's go with that
yeah,
option.
let's go with that. It was a fun experience. It got other people involved, which was a big part of what we wanted to do. That was a lot of fun. Why am I like forgetting? Like I feel like I'm forgetting something that was
How many are you up to now? How many barrels do you
I
know?
think
Do you even know
I
a
think 1
number?
million. I think 1
A
million.
million? Yeah,
I think
I thought I was more in that 999,000 range.
we're approaching. We've got a lot. I think we're into, if I'm not mistaken, Jason's got the spreadsheet of death. He can probably tell us what we're at, but it feels like when we slow down that it's actually more. Like I feel like we haven't done as many this year, but I'm sure it's more than we've done the year prior. And every year we say, well, we got to kind of pump the brakes, and we don't.
Right.
But like I'll go back to kind of experience stuff. The makers experience was a ton of fun, being able to create kind of, again, your own, staves, your own kind of recipe and all of that. That was a lot of fun. Classy organization and everything that they did there. Jack Daniels that we just did not long ago was fantastic. I mean, they did a great job. 130 barrels.
130 barrels. That's
130.
awesome.
So yeah, it's been a lot, but that's what I would say to trump all of that would be the experience you have with all of the people. That's the best part of it, because just if he and I were doing that either in person or virtually, it wouldn't be nearly as fun as when you get to meet up with people, go and experience all of these things. That's really the fun part of it for me. Like, honestly, I could go and just not do anything and just watch everyone, let everybody else have a good time, and whatever it ends up being, it ends up being. And that's kind of what we did with our community blend that we did with Jared and Rachel at Barrel King. We got to select some of the barrels that they were going to use, and then we let them blend the samples to create the blend for the entire group.
I like that.
So I think overall, as a kind of a community thing, that's probably been the most fulfilling one that we've done, because of how involved it really was. But again, it's the people that really make these picks kind of memorable, and I've met some great friends through all of this, and it's been absolutely fantastic. So
I mentioned earlier that I'm the Summer Jam. So if anybody doesn't know, the Mash and Journey Club put on their first meetup down at Sagamore, and I was thankful enough to be able to make it. It's not far from where I am, so I knew I was going to make it. It was just a matter of if I could or not. So when I went down there and I met both you and Jason, but you mentioned the community, there's so many people that I saw down there that I just knew, whether they were on YouTube, whether they're in chat. Somebody would be like, oh, this is this guy in chat. This is this guy in chat. I met a couple of my own, patrons down there, it's just the community in general, like you said, is such an awesome experience. And I think that's why I really want to get involved in like an on-site pick. It becomes hard with my schedule, but I do want to get involved and bring people into something like that, because not everybody has an opportunity to sit down and do a barrel pick, whether it's their first one or their 132nd. It's still a special experience to sit down at a company and actually go to that distillery and do a pick together. So
it's the best. And again, we can do something like, I mean, that's the fun part of this, is we fortunately have access to some really good distributors, and I know you probably do as well, but we've been given the ability to be able to do a lot of these different things and have people come and do all this stuff. So the logistics of making it all happen is more difficult than to say, hey, yeah, let's collab. Like, that's easy to do. Yep. Making it happen is the difficult part. But that's one thing you kind of find in this kind of community, is that people one way or another just make things happen. Like, you just kind of make it happen. So it's what I look forward to the most of anything that we do, whether it's through, again, the Mash and Journey Whiskey Club is the hub, but then you got, you know, patrons, and I've met a lot of them. I talked to a lot of them, and it's just great. Like I love the communication with everybody and being able to do all these things. It's the best part of all of what we do.
So two questions about the picks, because you've done so many. Question number one, is there a pick you haven't done yet that you're like, you've always wanted to do? Is there a bottle that you don't have your name on yet that you're like? For me, it's a Russell's Reserve single barrel. If I had my name, I would call it quits. I could die tomorrow. I'd be happy. Is there a bottle out there that you have where you've already done it maybe, and you're just like, that's an awesome thing that I've always loved this particular brand, and I got my name on it? That's question number one. We can start with that.
Man, that's a real tough one. What I would say to that is, it feels like we've done all of them, and there's a little bit of excitement each time something else comes up. But man, that's a real tough one. A bottle that we have not done. I know we have an opportunity to do a Knob Creek. I've always been a Knob Creek fan. I look forward to kind of doing that one. It's kind of fallen a little bit off the radar. You know,
me and my community have a funny Knob Creek story, so we always joke about Knob Creek.
You know, it's a good. I don't know, like if there's. I don't know if there's an actual
Knob Creek does it with they send you. You're supposed to fill theirs with water. Is that correct?
Oh,
is that how
don't
they
know.
do that? Somebody did a Knob Creek pick. I don't know if this is correct. I don't know if it's Knob Creek, but there's a particular brand where they send you the whiskey and they want you to dilute it yourselves. So you have to put 3 drops of water in each sample to make it what they want you to do.
I could think that. Yeah. JG kind of nailed it for me. I was hoping to do a Basil Hayden pick, but
Basil Hayden pick would be nice.
Only if they promise to keep us or allow us to get it down to 80 proof. I don't want any barrel proof Basil Hayden.
I was thinking you could maybe go under, just take bourbon off of it, do like a little 65 proof.
Yeah, I could do something like that. Man, that's a good one. That's a really good question. I'm sure as soon as I press like
it's tough when you've done 131 of them. It's tough. That's why I kind of wanted to ask you. For me, it's very easy. I've got a few of them that I would love to do.
I like the idea of blending some different things. I've talked to Jason about doing some more of those because that's even more unique, more fun to kind of pull out different flavors. But yeah, what do you have? What are some favorite or what are some kind of bucket list picks for you?
Oh, definitely. Like I said before, definitely Russell's Reserve. Knob Creek would be one of mine that I would also love to do, just because my community, like I said, I was in Matt Madness, and I did a little. He sent 3 Knob Creek single barrels for my particular day, and I double sniffed it. You're not allowed to double sniff. It was a whole thing. My community doesn't let me live it down to this day. So Knob Creek would be one. Russell's Reserve single barrel would be one. Obviously, like any of those big name guys, but. I've done Driftless Glen. I've done we had the Blue Note pick, which was fantastic, and we have a couple more coming out. So,
all right. So it looks like next year when we do the Russells, it looks like you can be included, Jason.
Jason, don't tease me in that, Jason.
I don't think it's a matter of teasing. Again, this is the fun part.
I got to take a picture just to make sure, you know.
Can't let them forget. If you don't screenshot that, it didn't happen, right?
It's never happened. It never happened.
Oh yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, that's really the fun part of it. And there's always these things of, man, just getting people involved and like watching people. Like even when we had Ben Hernandez, who did his very first single barrel pick, he started out with Jack Daniels. So that's like literally being introduced to football and going immediately to the Super Bowl.
You just get to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and it was kind of funny. He just had this like permagrin on his face like the whole entire time. And I said to Ben, I'm like, man, I don't want to like ruin your experience, but they're not all like this. I'm just telling you, they're all of these barrel picks are not like this. But it was good. And again, that was the best part, is just seeing people have a good time. And no matter, honestly, whatever it is you do in person, you're gonna have the best experience no matter what it is. So
right. My next question for you, question number 2, was what are your new picks coming out? So we talked before this about it's hard to get every barrel pick from every creator that you love out there. And I understand that from my perspective, from anybody who's watching's perspective, is budgets are tight. You can't buy everything. I would, and we talked about the secondary market and these other distilleries coming out with these wild prices. I would argue that if you have somebody that does what you or I do, that you love their palate and you love their tasting notes, and you kind of follow along with them because they identify with what you like, buying their barrel picks is probably more beneficial than going out and risking your money on the next limited edition something.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of lined up with you. I've always kind of lined up with Jason. Your barrel picks, I've tried a few of them via samples. I've tried a few of them via buying them myself. What are
Yeah.
your next barrel picks coming out that you're excited about?
Boy, so and we'll be doing something coming up here like after this. We'll be doing like a Patreon live. But so we do, not to like make you feel bad, but we do literally have Russells coming, 2 Russells and a Kentucky Spirit coming in a
Beautiful.
I'll say a few days basically.
Just a CNF coming out.
Yeah, I mean, we've got like they're all lined up over here on the side, waiting to talk to all
I
these other
I
guys.
hate you.
We have like a rare character that we've got that's coming, which is some of um, basically some of the oldest stuff that's come out of Bardstown Bourbon Company regarding their rye. Jack Daniel stuff we've got coming, another rye 3 we've got coming, Nashville Barrel Company we've got coming. Um, I don't want to say it seems to be like endless, and like
Rotating door.
the logistics of making all of this happen are more difficult than just having like
Hey, they're showing up.
yeah, it can be really, really tough, and that's one of the things we're actually kind of battling right now. But yeah, that's just kind of a few of them off the top of my head that we've got coming pretty soon. Our 4-gate pick is coming pretty soon. So yeah, lots of stuff. And again, that's the fun part, is doing these things, sharing these different things while still trying to not just completely inundate people with one pick after another.
Right.
So
Yeah.
but here's going back in terms of like, bucket list things. This lady is probably one of the people within the industry, Nancy Fraley, who I kind of admire, not only like just how she is as a person, but her knowledge for whiskey and other spirits. And to take it even further, the fun part would actually be doing like single barrel picks with someone like her involved, like having these people that have a huge play or a huge amount of influence within the industry. Yeah, it would be to be able to sit there and nose and taste things, with someone like Nancy, and just listen to them and just listen to what they're doing and how they're processing everything. So, that would be something that would be, a big honor, and something that would be a lot of fun to be able to select a barrel with, like Nancy. I mean, I know she does a lot of blending for a lot of different, distilleries, but
I was gonna say, is she with Still Austin? Is that the
she's not with them, but she's basically like I'll say like an independent contractor. And I know that's
Okay.
like not making it sound as good, but I mean, what she does and her influence on a lot of these different brands and a lot of the whiskeys that we taste have everything to do with what it is that she does for so many of these brands. Absolutely a genius within the whiskey world, and I'm sure other things as well. So I know Jason would echo that as well. So but yeah, and I guess for you that it'd be, I would flip it on you and kind of ask you kind of the same thing. So
yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. I'm a little bit what do we got here? Oh, she was listening. So the opposite of my wife. My wife doesn't listen to what I say. So I appreciate you, Nancy. I appreciate you listening to me. But let's do this before we wrap it up. First of all, thanks for doing all of this. Thanks for kind of letting people, get to know a little bit about you. But before we do, I guess kind of talk a little bit about your goal for, maybe 2024 with both either YouTube, Instagram, whatever it is you're doing, Patreon. What are some of your kind of whiskey goals and things that you want to kind of get accomplished?
So we talked about it a lot tonight, is the whiskey community. I think it's taken a long time, but I've grown my current community into something that I can be proud of, and then met the correct people within Whiskey Tube, whether it be yourself or Jason or a bunch of the other whiskey YouTubers that we've met tonight, that I've allowed myself to be able to at least expect some growth. Um, so my biggest thing is bringing people into the Bourbon of the Week community. I think we have a great community. I think it's one of those things, we've said it 100 times, is building that community is awesome. We have a Discord where we hang out 24/7 as just patrons. As if you don't want to be a patron, you can still come hang out in the general chat and Discord and just kind of get to know people. Offer you a place to, like you said, you don't have an opportunity to buy a particular bottle, or maybe it's not in your market and somebody else can help you find that kind of thing. Is without the community, none of our channels really are successful. So focusing on really growing the community going forward and meeting just new people at new places and trying new things. So whether that be a Russell's Reserve single barrel pick with you and Jason in the future, or just meeting a new person who's just getting into the whiskey community, I think we're very open in both my channel and yours about whether you're brand new to the world. And I think a lot of people get intimidated by, hey, this guy's got 100 bottles on his shelf. Like, I have kind of a stupid question, like, how do you know this, or how do you get these tasting notes? And there are some YouTube channels, and I don't think there's many of them these days, that might make you feel intimidated. But I guarantee you, if you reach out to any of them individually outside of their regular reviews, they're going to be open arms inviting you into learning some new stuff. So that's my big thing, is just keep growing the community and keep having fun with this.
That's probably the best focus, because I think honestly, when you start there and that's the base, everything else will kind of work itself out. You know, when you kind of surround yourself with, you know, a lot of, you know, really good people, knowledgeable people, people who have the same kind of passion that you do, you know, really everything else will kind of work out. You know, it's just kind of the way it is. I mean, if you have a solid base, and it doesn't matter what it is that you do, but if you start there and you know, work your way out, everything seems to kind of come together at some point. So I think that's a really good place to be, is kind of stay grounded, you know, stay kind of humble and all of those things, because just like anything, if you let something, you know, get to you, or whatever it may be, if you start to overthink things, that's when it just gets to the point where you're kind of lost. Like, now, if this ever feels to you like it's a job, like I have to do this, I have to do that, that's when it's either time to kind of slow down, step back, whatever it may be.
If it's not fun anymore, then I'm in it for the wrong reasons.
That's a very good point, you know. So and there have been times where, I mean, myself, others, you do have to take a step back where it just gets to be too much. You need like a little reset, freshen things up, get back to it, and you know, the fun part of it happens. So I'm sure every single content creator, no matter what it is, has you know, felt that way at some point. But you as long as you kind of listen to yourself and you kind of take that correction, then you're good, you know. So I'm glad to hear that's kind of your focus on things. Community first, that's important, and everything else will follow. So
absolutely.
Well, hey, thanks, brother. I appreciate you. So before we go, where can everybody kind of find you, your channel, all of that good stuff?
Bourbon of the Week, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Hopefully coming out with a storefront soon. I've been talking about it for a couple of years now, but as of right now, Bourbon of the Week on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. So
really, a storefront?
Just not like a brick and mortar, but just like an online merch presence type of thing. So
okay.
We'll get like bourbonoftheweek.com, but it's a little, somebody bought it up already, and it's a little expensive.
Really?
So. It's crazy, these people. I tell you what, I'm not paying them $1,200 a year. I can tell you that.
That's crazy. I'll tell you.
I'll buy two Wild Turkey Generations before I pay that person.
There you go. Well, hey man, thanks for coming on tonight. I greatly appreciate it. Love watching your stuff. Keep doing what you're doing. It's nice to be able to have that little outlet, and you're putting a lot of smiles on a lot of people's face. So keep doing your thing.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me on here as well. And they always say give you your flowers first. You've been a great help with me and my channel going forward. So appreciate everything that you do for the community. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, brother. Thanks everybody for joining tonight. So for speaking of community, so following this, maybe in the next 15 minutes, we're going to be doing a Patreon only live. We'll be doing updates of bottles, release dates. We'll probably run through a few tasting notes and stuff. So if you are a patron, come on over. There will already be a link. I'll post it here in a couple minutes on, actually, I've already done it in Patreon. So you guys have that. But 15 minutes will be live, patrons only. And yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out on another Tuesday night. Greatly appreciate it. Always love seeing everybody. And we'll see you next Tuesday. I don't know if I'm going to do another serious live stream like this or not next Tuesday, but we'll figure that out. So cheers, guys. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it. Chris, thanks for joining tonight. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Scott.
See you guys.